Oh my gosh, Pretty Girl Club. I am so glad that I have the Patreon and the Discord because you guys have been talking a lot about the whole Chili situation. For those of you who don't know, Chili from TLC, who is mixed race, she's a Blasian woman. She is black and Indian. But anyway, she got called a colorist and she got called basically anti black and self hating because she did not want to be called chocolate. And she responded to a commenter saying that she perceives her skin tone as caramel. Like when she does not have a tan, that's her skin color. She can tan to chocolate, but her natural skin tone without a tan is more caramel. This plays right into the things that I've been talking about on this channel for years. First of all, why is it always non-light skinned people, unambiguous, monoracial, dark-skinned African Americans who are arguing back and forth over who's light skinned and who's not? So that's number one. Number two, not every person who has blackness as a part of their identity is required to call themselves chocolate. There are only a few nicknames that people use for their skin tones in the black community, I've noticed. Generally speaking, people call themselves things like caramel, chocolate, maybe golden or something like that. So if Chili feels like she is closer to caramel than being chocolate, then that is her identity. Like you cannot identity police someone or bully someone into unambiguous blackness. And also, by giving Chili the argument, the whole you're not light-skinned enough argument, that in and of itself is colorism right there, because what you're trying to imply is that you are not light-skinned enough to call yourself caramel. Also, why are people so obsessed with Chili's self-perception? Why don't people keep the same energy with unambiguous monoracial black women? Why are they only keeping the same energy with Chili, who is clearly mixed race and she clearly identifies with her mixed ancestry? Someone even had the audacity to say something along the lines of, it doesn't matter how many baby hairs she has, like if she goes to jail, the police will still book her as black. That's one of the most ignorant comments I've ever heard in my life. First of all, not everybody defines their identity based around police trauma. Not everybody centers their whole identity and self-perception around what a racist police officer would think of them or what an ignorant white police officer thinks. So just because you center your identity around what white people think of you, that doesn't mean that mixed people do the same thing. Obviously, Chili does not do the same thing. But I've noticed that anytime people feel like you are not light-skinned enough, then they will start talking crap. And especially if you are a person who is not a dark-skinned, unambiguous black woman, but you are also not white passing and you have significant admixture. So let's say you have an Indian background like Chili. Meg the Stallion, for example, she has some Creole. I know she has some Creole admixture in there, and she's very proud of that. I noticed that anytime a person looks too dark to be mixed, or they have a phenotype that is considered too dark, people love to attack that, and they want to desperately control your self-perception. We know damn well that the average unambiguous monoracial black woman walking in the United States does not look like Chili from TLC. So expecting Chili to identify herself with how unambiguous black women identify themselves, that is unrealistic. Also, the black community, stop begging mixed people to be your representation. Stop begging mixed women to be the representation of a chocolate black woman. Stop begging biracial women to be the representation of blackness. Stop begging other people to be your representation. If you are so concerned with chocolate skin being represented, or you want to see that more in Hollywood, then by all means go support Kelly Rowland, because I don't know how many times Kelly Rowland has flopped in comparison to Beyonce, and so many people try to say, oh no, it's because of colorism, it's because everybody's colorist against Kelly. But where is the support for the actual unambiguous monoracial dark-skinned unambiguous black women? Chili is not that, and she never will be, and she does not look like the average monoracial unambiguous black woman. Also, just because people comment on her Instagram and say, oh, actually, you're not caramel, you're not light-skinned enough to be caramel, you need to calm down with all that confidence, Chili. Stop thinking you're cute, because we already know that people who have a caramel skin tone, they are the stuck-up light skin. So Chili, don't go feeling too good about yourself because you're not light-skinned. So-and-so other people are lighter than you. Like I saw that they were even trying to compare her to her former bandmates of TLC. And this is a very common humbling tactic that happens with darker skinned, non-white passing exoticals. So non-white passing mixed race women, non-white passing multi-generationally mixed women who do not fit the stereotype of kind of like that black and white biracial. So a lot of people who are ignorant about mixed race people And a lot of people who don't have any mixed friends or family members, they've never seen a person that looks like Chili. And so I've noticed that in the Black community, their mindset is you are what you look like, or like your skin tone. It's not even you are what you look like. It's really your skin tone defines you in the Black community. So, but how are we the colorist though? How is Chili a colorist if other people are the ones policing her color? Other people are the ones taking time out of their day to comment on her Instagram, and they're desperately trying to control her self-perception. They are desperately trying to get her to represent herself as an unambiguous monoracial Black woman. They're desperately trying to get her to call herself chocolate. And the thing that I always thought was amazing was how people always fight and argue over who's light-skinned. That is pedestalization. If you police it, you're pedestalizing it. Have you ever noticed how nobody argues over who's the darkest? Nobody compares you to somebody darker and says, actually, you're not that dark skin, so don't go getting all cocky because you're not dark chocolate. You're only milk chocolate. I don't see people do that. People only go back and forth when it comes to arguing about who's light-skinned. So this whole talking point that the Black community is trying to give Chili, the whole you're not light-skinned enough to claim caramel, this is the same thing that they did with light-skinned Keisha. And I've only noticed that unambiguous Black women, they only argue against you as a colorist if you are a mixed woman or if you are a Black man. If you're a mixed race man like Chris Brown and you clearly have a history of doing and saying negative things to women, Black women in particular, notice how nobody cares. He'll still be out here selling out shows, like nobody's going out of their way to stop listening to his music. I did not see this same outrage with Simone Biles when she said that she wanted Zendaya to play her in a movie. Zendaya looks nothing like Simone Biles, but suddenly, if it's a mixed race woman who is not white passing, people feel like, oh no, you have to be one dropped into Blackness. Chili, you're too pretty to not represent unambiguous dark-skinned Black women. So get your ass over here back into the Black community where you belong. Forget about your Indian heritage. Forget about your own family members. That doesn't matter. If your skin tone has any proximity to mine, then you have to represent me. Have you ever noticed that? Why is it that us mixed race women or multi-generationally mixed women, why do we have to be forced to represent unambiguous Black women, even if she is darker skinned or, looks more Black than anything else? Guess what? You don't get to control how Chili sees herself. So if she has been navigating through life and being perceived as caramel to the point where she is confident enough to comment on her own Instagram in front of hundreds of thousands of people, if she's that confident to call herself caramel in front of hundreds of thousands of people, guess what? That means that behind closed doors or throughout her everyday life, that is how she has been perceived, and that is how she has been treated. And obviously, it's strong enough to the point where she felt the confidence to say it in front of hundreds of thousands of people. She obviously didn't think it was a big deal. She didn't think people would be making articles about it. That is how she defines herself. And she specifically said in her comments that when she does not have a tan, she considers herself to look more caramel. Just because someone can tan to a certain shade, that doesn't mean that they identify with that shade. A tan is something that is temporary. So it only happens, if you have a lot of sun exposure. So the majority of the time you are probably a little bit brighter or, you don't identify with that particular shade. And also, why are we so obsessed with the skin tone nicknames that other people call themselves? Just admit that you're threatened by Chili's identity. You are threatened by the fact that she's mixed race and that she's a divested queen. In your eyes, she got her white boyfriend, because we all know how in the unambiguous Black community, they claim to be so pro-Black, but then as soon as they get some money, as soon as they get some status, they run to create these interracial relationships to create mixed women like Chili. And then you want to get mad when a mixed woman like Chili doesn't identify with you. And also, to be fair, there are only a few nicknames that people call themselves in the Black community. Caramel, chocolate, maybe dark chocolate, I don't know, maybe like a dark bronze or something. So Chili is just picking whatever shade she feels most closely and accurately resembles her own shade. Why is it that whenever other people go online and they look darker, people have no problem saying, oh yeah, they got a tan, oh, they were in the sun, like that's why they look darker. But suddenly when it's Chili, because she was bold enough to proudly claim how she perceives her own skin tone, because by the way, skin tone is subjective. Skin tone is subjective depending on the part of the United States you're from. It is subjective based on whatever your skin tone comparison is. Most of the time, when people say you're light skin or you're dark skin, what they're really doing is they're just comparing you to themselves. So it's like, okay, well, anyone lighter than me will think I'm dark skin, and anyone darker than me will think I'm light skin. So skin tone is very subjective. And at the end of the day, race and skin tone still are social constructs, to the point where even on this channel, we had to do a vote on what we are going to call light skin. And by the way, we voted on Fenty shades 390 and above, because we noticed that once you hit 390 and above, that is when we start having similar experiences, just like chili, where people love to tell you you're not that light skin. That is one of the main talking points that people give to anyone that they perceive to be lighter, more ambiguous, or more quote-unquote mixed looking than themselves. And I noticed that people were also calling chili a bird. Calling a woman a bird, I noticed that that is a mixed race slur. Like, that's basically a slur that people try to use against mixed race women. They try to say we look like birds because some of us have noses, with a nose bridge, kind of like chili, where it kind of points out. So it's not the typical wide, flat African American nose. Like when you turn to the side, your nose kind of like it comes out from your face. And I've noticed that people were calling chili a bird, just like how they called Danny Lay a bird. And also, have you ever noticed how the unambiguous Black women community, they like to try to move the goalpost as to what's light-skinned and what's dark-skinned. So for example, with Danny Lay, when she came out with that song, Yellow Bone is What He Wants, people started arguing and saying, well, Danny Lay is not a yellow bone because she does not have enough Black ancestry. A yellow bone is for somebody who has 2 Black parents, 4 Black grandparents, or they at least have more than 50% African ancestry. So people were trying to say yellow bone skin tone starts at Beyonce. But now, suddenly, when someone who is a bit darker than Beyonce says, okay, well, basically by that logic, I would be caramel, or, if my skin tone shade and my foundation shades are usually caramel, that's what I'm going to call my skin, suddenly people want to go back and flip it again. So have you noticed how a lot of Black women who are unambiguous, not only do they like to argue back and forth about who's light-skinned and who's not, but they also love to move the goalpost of who's light-skinned because they want to pretend like we don't exist. They want to pretend like being light-skinned is just the rarest thing in the world, like nobody can be light. And what they're also trying to do is they're trying to break Chili's self-esteem. They want to break her down. This is a typical humbling tactic. They do not want Chili to feel confident in her skin tone. They don't want Chili to have a strong sense of identity when it comes to her skin tone. They don't want Chili to be able to control her own self-perception. They don't want her to be able to give her skin tone any sort of nickname whatsoever. They want control over how Chili sees herself. They want control over how Chili views her own skin tone. But the bottom line is, if she doesn't see herself as chocolate, then you're not going to be able to convince her that she's chocolate. Like, she's not going to go out now and say, okay, I'm chocolate. No. And also, Chili herself, she even came on Instagram and said, hey, like, I can get a tan, blah, 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 chocolate is beautiful. So she even said herself, chocolate skin is beautiful, yet she is still being called anti-Black. So which one is it? Is she too Black, or is she not Black enough? This is exactly what I'm talking about when I say that mixed women are constantly thrown in and out of Blackness, regardless of complexion. And usually, if you are a darker exotical, people like to compare you to people lighter than you, just like how they're doing with Chili. They compared her to women who were more yellow than her, or women who were lighter, more beige, and they said, you basically don't measure up to them. And, so have you ever noticed how suddenly Left Eye and T-Boz, suddenly they're both light-skinned, when just a few weeks ago, people were talking crap about Chloe and Halle, who are damn near the same shade, saying that they're not light-skinned. So have you seen how people love to throw us mixed people in and out of Blackness? They throw us in and out of being light-skinned, and it just depends on their mood and their self-esteem level. But have you noticed how every single time, though, it's always based on them not wanting us to have a strong sense of identity? By the way, Chili said that when she is not tan, she believes her natural skin tone is caramel or closer to caramel. So I have included some more natural looking pictures of Chili where she doesn't appear to have a tan. So Chili calling herself caramel is not colorist. Mixed women do not have to call themselves chocolate in order to prove that they are not colorist. Just because someone sees themselves as the complexion that they are naturally, it doesn't mean they're colorist. Not everybody identifies their skin tone based on the absolute darkest that it can get. Some people base their skin tone on how it was born or how they were born. Others base their skin tone on what color it is the majority of the year. And then some people base their skin tone on their foundation shade. So I'm pretty sure that bullying Chili in the Instagram comment section of her page, that's not going to make her suddenly become this social justice warrior, pro-black representative for chocolate-skinned monoracial black women. Stop begging mixed women to be the representation of unambiguous black women. Everyone has their own internal scale of how they judge skin tones. Like I said, it could be based on culture, geographical location. You don't know if Chili grew up around a lot of people who were darker than her, or if she grew up around a lot of people who were lighter, or if she grew up interacting more with the Indian community. You have no idea. You also don't know how much she actually tans or how much she has the ability to tan, because one thing about us is when you have ancestry of both African people and non-African people, I have noticed that there can sometimes be more of a drastic change in how much you can tan and also how pale you can get if you do not happen to go in the sun as much. But what do you ladies think? Do you think that we should identity police Chili's skin tone? Do you think she is being a colorist because she does not call her skin tone chocolate? If you are not light-skinned, or if you are quote-unquote not that light-skinned, does that mean you are required to call yourself chocolate? Because that's what people are making it seem like. But it's like, who died and made you the queen to determine everybody else's skin tone? Like, no, your skin is literally just an organ on your body. That's it. The fact that we are policing people's bodily organs is insane to me. And also, one thing I forgot to say, if you feel like Chili is neither caramel or chocolate, well then why can't you just be silent in her comment section? Why do you have to force her into being chocolate? If you genuinely feel like, oh, she's actually neither one. She might be a bit darker than caramel and a bit lighter than chocolate. Okay, so why is she forced to be the darker shade? And the people who are policing it are doing that because deep down inside, they associate lighter skin with being prettier or being more quote-unquote bougie or stuck up, and they associate darker skin with being regular. And so they're trying to tell Chili, no, you look like us. You look like a regular woman just like us. But they don't realize that they're actually dissing themselves by saying that. But what do you ladies think? Let me know in the comments section, and I'll talk to you next time. Stay pretty, ladies.